meeting with the Ask Me Anything session with Pete Oliver. I'm just setting up stuff like usual, getting out onto the live stream on LinkedIn and Twitter and our Facebook feed. Really excited that we just popped up live on Procurement Foundry on the LinkedIn live feed. So let me just get that all set, and then we'll jump right into it. Okay. 1 second, just gonna double check some stuff, Peter. And Pete's joining us from Maui this morning. So I don't know, what time is it out there, Pete?
5 a.m.
Thanks for getting up at 5 a.m. to talk to a bunch of procurement people and sourcing people. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
Yeah, so we got some people jumping in on LinkedIn Live as well. Hi, everybody on LinkedIn Live. I'm going to start monitoring that as well. And let's see. Just going to kill that. Okay, great. So yeah, everything's all set up. Takes a couple of seconds because we're doing a bunch of things. We're running a Zoom meeting and streaming live out there onto the internet in 4 different locations. Hopefully at some point I'm going to have somebody in the back room doing all that stuff so we can just start cranking. We already got people chatting up on LinkedIn, so nice to see everybody from Atlanta and all the other locations. Wow, we got about 25 people on LinkedIn Live already, Pete, for this. Really cool. And we got another 15, 20 people inside of the Zoom meeting. So really quickly today, just some quick housekeeping. Again, Mike Cadju from Procurement Foundry. This is part of our ongoing original content series. We do AMA questions where we bring people in and let you, the audience, ask them any questions you want. We've got chat capabilities, and we've also got Q&A capabilities if you're inside of the Zoom room. And if you're not inside of the Zoom room and you're watching on LinkedIn Live, then you can ask your questions on LinkedIn Live, and I will desperately try to monitor any questions that you have for Peter on LinkedIn Live as well as in the Zoom room. If you are in the Zoom room, please use the Q&A so that I can see that pop up as we go, because I am doing a whole bunch of things at the same time. So anyway, let me introduce you to my friend Pete Oliver. Pete, great to see you. 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning out in Maui. Love the shirt, and it's great to see you, man. Pete and I have known each other about what, 20 years now, and we parted ways about 15 years ago. Pete's been extremely successful, so thanks for dialing in from Maui, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great. So Pete's been kind of following our progress with Procurement Foundry. Pete's on the other side of the coin, right? So we're all about procurement and sourcing. Pete and I met each other back in the day when you were directing sales on an account that I was running for Insight, right? I mean, for Software Spectrum, actually, right? When it first started with Software Spectrum, and Pete was running the account with a couple of other guys who are now climbing the ladder as well. And we were doing a lot of business together on technology related spend, right, Pete, when we first met?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still friends after me.
And we're still friends after bludgeoning each other for years, which is amazing.
Right.
So Pete went one way and I went another, and I stayed in house, and Pete went on the entrepreneurial route. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about it. Pete, tell me about Sailfish and about Sandler training and things like that. Tell me a little bit about your background first. Tell everybody a little bit about your background. Maybe tell them a little bit about Sailfish and a little bit about Sandler training. Believe it or not, I don't know that a lot of the procurement industry folks know how mature the sales training industry is. So hopefully we'll get into some of that as well. It pales in comparison to some of the stuff that's going on in the negotiation and purchasing side of the business. The procurement side of the business pales in comparison to the sales side. And I've been ranting about that for a long time, that, you know, the sales side of the table gets a lot more exposure and a lot more compensation and a lot more other things than we get on the procurement side. So really excited to have you. We're gonna pick Pete's brain on what's happening inside of sales reps' minds, what's happening inside of the sales process, what they're thinking about, what motivates them, things like that. So Pete, really quick, and we're here for a full hour. So Pete, tell me a little bit about your background, a little bit about Sailfish and how that all came to be.
Okay, yeah. No, I started my sales career working for a couple of large organizations, and then at 26, I got a job selling technology, and I worked my way up. A couple of years into that progression, you and I met, and I spent 9 years with that company, and I saw how the Sandler training that I had helped me and my guys. And through that 9-year journey, it was a lot of fun, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So about 11 years ago, I started Sailfish LLC and bought into an existing Sandler training franchise. And over the last 11 years, we've decided to move our family to Maui and open up a second location. But my favorite part about being a sales leader was helping my reps be successful. And the higher I got in the organization, the more that I saw I couldn't do that as much as I wanted to. So I decided to start the Sandler journey to make sure that I was spending pretty much every waking moment trying to help salespeople be successful so that they could help their clients be successful.
That's funny. I spend every waking moment trying to help procurement and sourcing people be successful. So it's literally like talking to the anti-Mike Gadget. And not that I don't want to make it all about competitive, but absolutely, it's interesting how our paths are differential but almost the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Sailfish. Tell me a little bit about the organization, the structure, how formal is it, types of clients that you have, and I think people would be interested to hear that.
Yeah, Sandler's a very flat organization. We're a franchised organization, and there's 250 some odd training locations across the world, and there's thousands of Sandler trainers, and Sailfish is one of the larger ones in terms of revenue anyway. And we're basically structured to help our clients succeed, and we do that through strategy and structure consulting, sales training, leadership consulting, and at the end of the day, we try to learn what our clients need, and then we try to bring that to the table for them.
And can you give me a sense of scope of like how many different classes does it go through? Is it continuing education? Is it a one-time hit and then you send them out like ducklings into the field, or is it a constant? Is it enterprise class? Is it small to medium-sized business? Like where's the scope?
Sandler focuses all over the map because assuming that the clients are human, it'll work. So the humans we deal with typically are in an enterprise organization. Our largest client has a couple of thousand sales reps, and basically any company that had, for me personally, if they have 20 or more people that are touching the clients, then that's the type of client that we typically work with. And we do a lot with technology. We do some with financial services and we do some with manufacturing. Our Sailfish organization deals a lot with technology, especially with inside sales reps, do a lot with inside sales reps. Yeah.
Nice. So that's really interesting. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll try to dive down into that. So like I said earlier, we got until around 12 o'clock today. So we're going to be taking, and we're getting tons of people, by the way, all around the world on the LinkedIn thing, listening to you. Mumbai just checked in, Switzerland just checked in, India's in the house, lots of internationals and a lot of domestics as well. So hello to everybody that's on the LinkedIn live stream. And one more time for the folks that are in our room, we're going to monitor the Q&A in the room. But feel free to, send up a chat message as well if you need to, so that we can monitor that. So let's jump right in. I want to talk about, listen, there's, I mean, you know me, my negotiation strategy is not a win-win strategy, right? And I'm very combative when I get into the room. In my opinion, I treat the money like it's my money when I'm at a negotiation table. And the bigger my stack is, the smaller your stack is. And I kind of take the, head-to-head, mano-to-mano poker style in my negotiation. And I'm sure I fall into some amazing quadrant that classifies me, that your sales rep knows immediately who I am and what my profile is, and how to combat against a typical, I don't know, negotiation bully like myself, right? So I'm interested to talk a little bit about just in general, how do we talk a little bit about what's happening in the sales mindset? So why don't we start with, I'll Are there some basic strategies? Obviously, there's a 7-step or a 6-step sales cycle process. Can you tell me a little bit about what those are? Can you tell the audience kind of like, okay, it's the contact, it's the qualification, it's the this, it's this. I think we've seen some of that framework in some of the CRM tools and the automation there. So can you tell us a little bit about how it's all structured?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, before we go there, I think the 800-pound elephant that you like to talk about, I think there's two different types of sales reps. There's the enable sales rep, and then there's the convince sales rep. And
that's cool.
You probably know what both of those are.
Yeah.
And those two different types of reps follow two completely different processes. Like the convince sales rep, they can't start throwing up all over you quick enough.
Yeah, I know a couple of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think your negotiation strategy is going to work really well with them because they have no clue what you need or why you need it. So the only thing they can do is drop their price because they have no idea what the organization needs or wants. So they come in and their sales process basically looks like, okay, I have a pulse. Cool. Let me give them everything I've got and then keep chasing them until they call uncle and buy from me.
Right.
That's one sales process. The other one,
or they buy from you just to get the hell away from you.
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like giving the kid the toy so that he'll please go in the other room, right?
So it almost feels to you like they're buying, you're making a decision to move forward with this organization in spite of the sales rep.
Yeah.
They offered zero value to the process, and except for the fact that they were able to give you everything. Not necessarily what you actually wanted, but everything, so that you had enough to at least be able to say yes or no in either case.
And that's the convincing sales rep, right?
That's
the guy who's just trying to convince you to do business with him because he's got a product or a solution, or she has a product or a solution, and they're just going to hound you and chase you, through the depths of social, show up, interesting enough, show up at the same conference you're at, et cetera, right?
Yeah, if you're lucky, they come across like they're politely persistent.
Yeah.
If you're unlucky, it feels like they're stalking the crap out of you until you call uncle. So
I like that. Politely persistent versus stalking the crap out of you.
Yeah.
See, I knew this was going to be a great conversation, man.
And in the CRM, it's code for follow-up mode. They love that step in the sales process where everything is follow-up mode, and that's what they're telling their manager. Oh, I need to touch base with that person. I need to follow up with that person. Yeah. But to you, it's either politely persistent or stalking.
Yeah. So they're just going to stalk you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the bad one. Obviously, the enable one, their sales process is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And you hope it feels like you're both. I know that you want to win-lose negotiation, Mike. I get that, but you hope from your perspective, it feels like you're both sitting on the same side of the table, looking at the problem together. And we're at a place where you're both attempting to solve this problem and see if there's a mutual fit. And if there is, you move forward. And if there isn't, you don't. And it has to be a learn and share conversation in both directions.
Listen, I want to rectify something right now because there's a conversation taking place on LinkedIn. I am not a win-lose guy. Okay. As much as Pete seems to think so, because all the times we went to battle, right?
That. I didn't say that.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna correct myself. I am not a win-lose guy. I am a win and make you think you won guy. That's what I am.
Okay.
I want you to feel good about going away from the table with less shekels than I got. That's all I want. And that way you feel good about it. You get the sale. We got you in the right quarter so that you hit a target, something like that. But at the same time, I knew I was going to make the buy in that quarter anyway. I just want to leverage that timetable in order to get the price point or get the, and the other thing too is it's not all about price for us anymore, but we'll get to that as well. So I'm good. Go ahead. I want to throw that in there. I want to make sure that, everybody knows that I'm not Satan across the table because, I do enjoy speaking with guys on the other side of the table from time to time. And I don't want this to be Kadji just got blackballed in the entire industry. Nobody talked to him. So.
Mike, we're sitting here 20 years later. I mean, we're still talking for a reason.
Yeah, I guess
it's because I'm not that bright and I never did win, and I thought I did.
No, that's not true. I never let that happen with you, brother. You know that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the enabling side of it then, right? And for me, The enabling side of it is all about um, what I would call the transition from vendor to partner, right? And the word partner is bastardized all the time. I mean, people are like, oh, we got a strategic partner with this guy, we got a strategic partnership with that guy. And for me, I've always had the same definition, which is, hey, listen, a vendor is I've got, back in the day, a couple of years ago now, God, I can't believe how long it's been. I had, 37,000 vendors, right? And out of the 37,000 vendors on the $2.5 billion of spend that we were managing, myself and the team, I had 5 partners in 36,995 vendors, right? And the partners were the guys who were coming to me, proactively managing my account. They knew more than me. They were on the investor relation call before I was. They're diving into, what my business units and my lines of business need. Coming to me and saying, hey, congratulations on the new launch of the new agency, or you just won this new piece of business. By the way, that's going to come in with a whole bunch of new needs. You bought this agency. I know they had, Dell computers in your Lenovo shop. Let me jump on that right now and get moving with you on that. That type of stuff, right? Those people are really, really hard to find, right? Because typically, proactively managing an account like that sometimes means you're writing down the business on the sales side, right? You're taking a short-term revenue loss because there's a new discount program or there's a new model by which, I mean, probably the classic example is the cell phone company providers, right? I had an amazing partner in the cell phone provider space, and he'd come and see me at least once every 6 months, and he'd be like, hey, Mike, we got a new program. I'm layering you in on this. It's going to be a 1.5, it's going to be 150 basis point reduction on your overall cost. Just want to let you know that I'm keeping out an eye on your spend pool, and we're proactively moving that down so that your cost reduction on your continuous improvement works. And that for me is an enabling partner in this space. Unfortunately, you're going to go through 36,995 people to find 5 of them, right? Because everybody says they're one, but they're not. So yeah. That's the perception, I think, or at least, and maybe I'm generalizing it across the board for my, 15,000 followers and my 3,000 Procurement Foundry members. What is it on that side of the equation? What is it on the sales side of the equation? Is it, hey, listen, this is really where we want to take this thing? Because again, if the relationship becomes really sticky at that point, right? Like I would never go out to RFP on my cell phone guy when he was doing that. I'm like, listen, you're proactively coming to me and reducing my costs. Why on earth would I ever want to get rid of you? Right. Yeah. So yeah, we just eliminated the RFP and we did the account review was simple. It's like, yeah, man, you helped us save 500 basis points this year. Thanks. Great. And oh, by the way, thanks for helping out our 200 executives who had problems at the airports when their phone got dropped in the toilet, something like that. But so is that kind of the vision? Is that where people is that what you're trying to educate sales organizations on? And do they come into your organization and say, okay, listen, these are the 2 things. You're either going to be one or the other. We can build your skill set for both, but you got to decide what you are.
Well, if they decide they're going to build their skill set for the convince, we won't be their partner.
Yeah.
Because we're not in the business of tricking anybody into making decisions on anything. It's like,
right.
And one of those initial trainings we do for sales reps is that, it's funny you bring it up, but we talk about that all the time. Like, how do you get equal business stature with a client? And if you're in the vendor bucket, you don't have equal business stature. It just can't happen. You got to get to that partner advisor bucket. And we talk a lot about what puts you in that bucket. And there's a lot of dichotomies there. And one of them is talking versus listening. So if you come in and go into convince mode, you're automatically putting yourself in that vendor bucket.
Right.
So there has to be a learn and share part of the sales process that's in the mutual best interest of both of us. Because one of those challenges that I think sales reps have a lot of is that they don't have an unlimited amount of time. So they could spend time with the wrong client and put themselves way behind the 8 ball because they can't hit their number because they're wasting their time with somebody that was never a good fit to begin with because they didn't find a way to put themselves in that advisor bucket and get to the truth.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And it's also a mindset thing for sales reps, especially if they're calling high-end organizations. if they're calling high, they automatically have a hard time putting themselves on equal business stature levels with the people that they're talking to, because they believe that the sales rep needs that CISO or the CIO or whoever they're selling to more than they need you, which is not true. If you get to a place where there's a reason to do business together, then it's obvious that there should be equal business stature. So putting yourself in that mindset up front is huge for a sales rep.
Does that translate across all aspects of sale, in your opinion? I know you particularly have an expertise, and your practice has an expertise in technology related spend, but does that cross itself against transient labor, business process outsourcing, recruiting and HR services? I mean, regardless of what you're selling, does that translate across the board?
I believe it does. I think even in what you might consider a commodity type business where it's all about the price, and because there's not a lot of differentiation between the vendors that you're dealing with, there's still a process that allows you to do business together. And sometimes that can become the differentiator. Right. And you can create value there, even though what you're selling is very similar to what somebody else is selling. So in some ways, it almost becomes more important to differentiate yourself in a situation like that.
All right. So already starting to get a couple of questions, a couple on LinkedIn, really good. I'll get to them in a little bit. I want to continue. I'm gonna jump in at around halfway mark and start to jump into some questions from them. But so I want to understand something, because I mean, Malcolm Gladwell wrote that book, Blink, and we kind of sum people up in the first 5 to 10 seconds with about 90% accuracy, right? So I want to start to jump in pretty quickly on what's happening as you engage with a sales or an account executive, or at the enterprise class, at the SMB space, that first engagement where are they trying to figure out who you are and what makes you tick? Are they trying to figure out what motivates you? Are they trying to put you in, and I think I've seen it before, what type of profile you are? Are you somebody who needs to be the champion? Are you somebody that needs to be the problem resolution person? And I don't know what those are. Is that happening kind of subconsciously or in the background? Are people being trained to kind of go, okay, this type of guy has these type of EQ needs, and because of that, this is going to be the approach with this person?
Yeah, we are attempting to do that, but it's comes from a place of love, if you will, because if we can't
understand, for you it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Because here's why, Mike. Without pain, all we are is a price.
Right.
And if we don't understand what that client is trying to accomplish, then it's going to do neither one of us any good, and it's going to put us in a position where we're going to both waste a bunch of time. So, and to boil that down, like, here's an example. We want to know if somebody's big picture or their detail. And that's in both of our best interests for us to know that, because let's pretend we get to the point where we're going to the demo phase or the presentation phase of the sales process, and we don't understand how our clients make decisions. We're going to present the information in a way that's not consistent, which would to allow them to actually know whether or not there's a fit here. So in some cases, we'll recommend to our clients, if you don't know if they're big picture or detail, we'll just ask them. Yeah. So that you don't waste their time. And it allows us to make sure that we're basically feels like we're walking up this hill together, instead of it feeling like we're pushing this giant ball together and it's so hard and we keep losing our footing, and understanding how people make decisions and how they want to be communicated to. It makes that journey a lot harder. Yeah.
So that's where you start to tie in. And obviously, I think one of the things that's probably starting to happen is you're trying to figure out from the person in front of you whether or not this person's has the juice, right? Are they a decision maker? Are they not a decision maker? I mean, because like you said, sales, there's not an infinite amount of time for the sales cycle process, right?
Right.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about that and how that works with, hey, listen, I'm a sales guy. I'm or director of sales, and I got a funnel that I'm trying to fill, right? So is there a stage, like maybe we can talk about that for a second, right? So, and I don't think everybody in the procurement industry knows that there's different stages associated with the sales cycle. So do you have kind of the big 5 stages of a sales cycle? What are those?
Yeah. So it basically starts with opportunity identification.
Yep.
Basically means we found somebody that has a need that we believe and they believe that there might be something there. Then it goes into qualification, which should be a two-way street. There should be a process where we're both qualifying each other to figure out if it makes sense for us to continue through the process. And then you work through your solution development stage, especially if you're selling something complex where you can't sell everybody the same thing. You have to figure out what version of what you do is a fit with what they need. And then you go into proposing an advancement stage, which basically means you're flipping the table, and now you're talking about how you could potentially help them in that organization. And then at some point it closes, and now you're managing the account. It becomes an account management process where you're implementing whatever you're doing. You're constantly determining how you can add more value to that organization and go from there. So
you land and expand, right? I mean, that's a real, and I know you probably know this off the top of your head. How much more difficult is it to find new business than to generate new opportunity inside of an existing client?
Infinitely harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why we want the win-win in the initial negotiation, because if it's not, then there's no way we're going to go back to the table again in either direction. If either side makes it manifests itself into some sort of win-lose.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask two more questions. I'm going to open it up because I get questions coming in from both sides of the equation. So talk to me a little bit about the emergence of social platforms and digital opportunity development versus the more traditional, hey, I met a guy. And the other thing too, one thing maybe you can touch on for us really quickly is, and now that I'm out of the CPO seat and I'm actually, I've got a consulting firm, and I've spoken with a lot of folks who sell and heading up a large digital community like this. Be shocked at how many salespeople I speak to every day, or business development people, or things like that. One of the things that kind of was shocking to me was how much collaboration there is amongst salespeople in a region against different technology, different product offerings, right? I mean, there's a lot of chatter going on. So let's stay in technology for a second, but it translates across everything, right? There's a lot of chatter going on between, the telecommunications and network stack guys, the hardware and software stack guys, the app dev and outsource services guys. I mean, they all kind of know each other. I mean, if you're selling tech, you're selling tech regardless of where you end up at. And over the years, you probably bounce around a couple times to climb the ladder. But ultimately, if I'm an account executive and I'm walking into a meeting and I'm hearing something about an upcoming project or something like that, there's other conversations that are taking place with other sales reps at other points in the week or the month, where it's like, hey, by the way, client number one might have a lead on this. Let's give you a soft intro and see if that can help you, because the sales guys are building out their own kind of informal network as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now, it's, put it this way: if you get referred in or introduced into an opportunity, the chances of closing that are somewhere between 1 in 2 and 1 in 4. If you get a warm
25 to 50%, if you're getting a warm lead.
Getting a warm lead. If you're cold calling your way in somewhere, it's, depending on how you measure that, the starting point of that sales process, it's like 1 in 100.
Wow, that's unbelievable to me. You're telling me so. Hey, listen, I'm out with the chief procurement officer, he and I just closed a deal for a big piece of technology with the CIO, and we're finishing up a call or something. And he asked the CIO, so what are the projects are you working on in the near future? And you're selling them laptops and desktops, but he talks about the fact that he's got a MPLS to SD-WAN migration, or he's going from an in-house payroll system to an out-house payroll system, or he's looking to develop, I don't know, something, restructure his healthcare and benefits, insurance coverage, whatever it is. If you've got somebody else in your network that you can hand that off to, the close opportunity there is 25 to 50% of the time versus 1% on lost lead, just goop that's out there in the market.
Yeah, and if you, because here's what happens when you cold call your way in, you get somebody with a pulse, and they may listen to you, but it never actually was qualified to begin with. So you have to basically kiss a lot of frogs to find the princess or prince
Right.
or whatever you want to
Right.
say.
Right.
So it starts off at a place where there is no equal business stature, there is no trust, there is no knowledge whether or not there actually is an opportunity there.
Right.
If you get referred in or introduced in, you've already got some of that foundation laid for you.
Yeah.
And the trust factor is already there because you got introduced in by somebody that respects both parties. So
Yeah.
you can actually get down to business quicker and determine if there's a fit. And if there is, you're going to win a lot. So yeah, we love to get referred in. It's a much easier way to go about the process.
Yeah. And your network is so much more advanced than what we have on our side of the table, right? I mean, Procurement Foundry is starting to do some of that, right? Where I've got people in the Procurement Foundry like, hey, man, I got to run an RFP on X, Y, and Z. Who did you use? Who did you like? Who's the account executive that you didn't feel like you needed to take a shower after? And a lot of that's happening inside of the Procurement Foundry now, which is, real-time pseudo speeding up the sourcing process of at least getting to the people you need to talk to and the right people inside of that organization you want to talk to. Because let's face it, there's a million guys servicing the non-enterprise space at Salesforce, right? Less than 250 seats. There's hundreds of people servicing that marketplace. It's always good to talk to a peer and say, who did you work with in the tri-state area, and would you recommend them and things like that. So I think on our side, our networking collaboration capabilities are infantile in comparison to the sales teams who have been doing it, and the sales professionals that have been doing it for years. And I'm not saying they're breaking NDA regulation or anything like that. I'm just saying they've got a really good system that I've started to see of Chatham House rules collaboration and peer-to-peer networking, whether it's monetized or not, right? I mean, let's be honest. Some of it's monetized in spiffs, lead, creation. Hopefully it's, hey, I gave you this lead and you made 50 grand off of it this year, and you're going to give me another lead next year. I'm going to make something off of it. And, that's how we'll trade chits back and forth. Right. But it's in my opinion, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, because you're not really privy to it, but it seems to be much more advanced, developed, mature than what we have on our side of the equation.
Mike, it could be, but I think the biggest tool that salespeople use to execute what you just said is LinkedIn, and that's available to all of us. And our ability to understand what our own network and what that reach looks like with the second connection concept is huge. If you wanted to actually meet pretty much anybody that would be inside of your world, you could probably get to them through a second connection.
Yeah. Is that starting to lose traction because of the fact that, I mean, listen, I get 15,000 followers on LinkedIn now because of the content that we put out there, and because, I don't know, I'm just this crazy guy who talks about procurement and sourcing all day long, right? Yeah. Is it starting to dilute? Because I don't know all 15,000 people, right? Which leads me to my next question, which is, how is the sales community dealing with now the mega networks? And obviously LinkedIn is the 800-pound gorilla, right? That's the B2B marketplace. You're not doing a lot of sales lead generation on TikTok right now, I'm assuming. But who knows? Maybe somebody is. I mean, if you're in beauty products or something like that, who knows? Maybe you are. Influencer marketing is huge, right? I mean, huge. But how is that? Is it starting to dilute because of the fact that people's networks are just naturally starting to grow? Because people aren't seeing it just as a resume board anymore. Like, how does that work?
It is diluted at the connection level, but if you dive deeper into the profile and you see who's endorsing them, or there's the endorsement situation, and then there's the what's the other word for it? When you say, yeah, that guy can do solution selling. But anyway, if you look deeper into the profile and you see who's endorsing who, you can start to get a sense of if the relationship is real and it's beyond just the connection, clicking yes to the connection.
Yeah, if you write up a recommendation or something like that.
Recommendation, that's the word I was looking for. So either endorsements or recommendations will allow you to figure out whether or not there's any juice there with that relationship with the other person.
Let me jump in. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions from the audience. So Dave,
YZ and Maui, did that come up yet? Usually get that out of the way pretty quick.
Yeah, nobody's asked how the hell did this guy get to Maui.
No, that's not my real background either. That's
Yeah.
actually
I,
our Massachusetts training center.
by the way, for everybody who is watching, Pete politely asked me what background I wanted him to show today. Did I want him to show the training room where he actually trains sales guys, or did I want to see the sunset in Maui? And I said, we're not interested in seeing the sunset in Maui because we'll all be jealous. This is a guy who literally lives the dream because he was able to move to a place that he loves and continues to work from and expanded his business there. So, by the way, and I know, yeah, I don't, please, for the love of God, you know, that's no, it's horrible. The view is horrible. So again, and I know I've said this to you, but I couldn't be happier for somebody that I know who's been able to achieve that dream. So congratulations. Dave from LinkedIn. Can Pete give an example of the questioning to use for internal stakeholders in their company when they want to advance a project but push back? Is there due to the pandemic and not enough time or resources are available? So I guess becoming your own internal sales rep, right, to a stakeholder internally, what type of questioning to the internal stakeholders would help get us over the hump of, there's a pandemic, there's, not enough time and resources. How do you, I mean, you must hear that all the time, which is, yeah, we're going to wait till post-COVID. And I wanted to wait till the COVID question to the end, but also, yeah, we just don't even have enough resources to attempt that project right now. So we're gonna skip it and table it. So from an internal perspective, how would we go about being internal sales rep on our own? Because procurement now and sourcing is almost becoming a sales organization in reverse inside of our own companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, and we are obviously, we're all living in this world right now. We're all dealing with the reality of the pandemic and what we're really seeing, and it's been inspiring to some extent from our own clients and then their clients. There's, I would say, about 2/3, and this is very general, but about 2/3 of organizations out there are figuring out how to move forward. And maybe they had to hit the pause button for a short period of time, but then they've decided, okay, we got to keep going. Failure is not an option. We can't stay paused forever. Let's go. And then 1/3, for whatever reason, they've had to hit the pause button, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this has all impacted organizations in different ways. So if I was trying to figure out from an internal perspective what we could do, first off, I try to figure out which category are we in? Are we pausing from a necessity, or are we at a place where, yeah, there's changes happening, but we want to move forward? And if that's the case, then you can continue the conversation internally. And I mean, we all know what the concept of return on investment is, and that you could probably put a dollar amount on every month that goes by, what happens when you don't solve the problem.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
If we know what that looks like, then we can make the decision as an organization if we force our way into continuing that evolution forward, because if we don't, we're actually losing more money because we didn't change. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like it's almost, to a lot of organizations right now that are acting and are moving forward, it's like they're at the beginning of the drag race and the wheels are spinning. Yep. But they're still doing a ton, and at some point the car is going to start going. So as long as we're moving, it'll catch up to itself. And I think our clients, whether there are internal stakeholders or our external clients, they're going to remember what we do right now, 2, 3, 4 months from now, when we're on the other side of the pandemic. So we want to stay as proactive as we can. And we want to continue to help our clients move forward, whether they're internal clients or external.
Yeah, fantastic. Quick question from Sarah on LinkedIn as well. Says how do we? Is it okay for us to ask for a new sales rep? And does that put some type of chink or armor in our relationship if it's just not working out from a relationship perspective? How bad is it to start shifting out the team? Should we do it regularly, or should we keep the same old team?
I mean, I kind of put that in the category of, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like, why not? If they're not meeting your needs, then you should change them out. Mm-hmm. And you want to make sure that, and this goes in both directions, in my opinion. We have this process called 3 wide, 3 high. And if your only contact in an organization is the sales rep, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. You're going to want to know 3 levels up and maybe over. So maybe not only do you want to know the sales rep, you want to know the engineer, you want to know the customer success rep. So if you're at a place where you want to continue to leverage that product or service, and the rep's not meeting your needs, then when I was a sales leader, I would have welcomed that conversation, and I would hope my rep would too, because if they don't know there's a problem, they can't learn from it. And we want to continue to move forward in the partnership. And if there's not open, honest communication in both directions, you're going to have problems. So I tend to be on the blunt side, Mike. So my recommendation would be, have that conversation with that organization and do it from try to keep it as positive as you can. But I think it's your right to ask for that.
I have to believe that, somebody inside of that sales organization, and again, I don't think we do a good job of that. And again, so a couple of things, just the fact that you've been able to tell me a little bit about the fact that, sales reps are either enablers or convincers, is something that I've never really categorized them as, although I probably should be doing. I mean, it just seems like there's so much psychology and Jedi.
When you say it that way, Mike, enablers, it sounds a little weird, but you get the point, right? It's
I get the point, but so think about the type of person that's in front of you and who you're being approached by, and whether or not this is the type of person you want to conduct business with. The other thing you said that was amazing was equal business stature, right? So equal business stature is a really interesting theory for me, from having a sales executive, in a lot of cases when you're spending 5, 10, 20, $50 million a year, there's an executive sponsor on that relationship, right, that you're trying to get in. But the other one that you just dropped that I think is really, really cool is the 3 wide and the 3 high thing. I don't know, and maybe I'm just naive, and I'd love to hear comments on both sides, on the Zoom and on the LinkedIn side. How many people on the procurement and the sourcing side are attempting to get into their critical strategic relationships 3 wide and 3 high? I mean, you can't do it with 37,000, vendors, right? But somewhere in those 37,000 vendors, you've got, the 80-20 rule. There's 100 vendors that you're doing business with that are representing 60% of that spend, right? And do you have the 3 high and the 3 wide on that, so that you can have that type of a conversation about the fact that, hey, listen, this isn't working for me. It's just getting stale. She or he's been on my account for 3 years. I think it's time to bring in some new blood. Who else have you got? And nothing's wrong. It's just, I'm a big fan of just pulling a crazy Ivan and mixing the thing up, stopping, going in reverse every 500 kilometers, like, the Russian sub captains did. So for me, I'm really interested in that. I doubt tremendously that very, very many people inside of our organization are doing that with the partner organizations that they do business with, or even the most strategic of their vendor population. So, an account executive, a VP of sales, maybe if you're lucky. So that's too high, and you don't know anybody on the wide side. You don't get access to them, right? Or you don't at least ask to have. Well, I don't even think you're thinking about it. So a quick question from me to the folks that are watching: is anybody doing that? Yes or no? And be honest. So another question we have is around the fact that we're in COVID right now, and the fact that we're doing a lot of sales over video and chat like this. Is that changing the EQ of the conversation? Is that changing, the interpersonal, the nonverbal side of the engagement from a sales executive perspective? And if so, what's going on in the sales education space to now potentially pivot to, hey, you're going to be probably selling over, Zoom a lot, right? So here's what you need to know. Like I can remember you and I had this conversation 100 years ago where it was, don't take sales meetings and purchasing meetings in my office, because this is my office. I know everything that's in here. I'd rather come to your office and see what the heck the regional Cisco office in Boston looks like, or the regional ADP office. If it looks like a shambles and people don't know what they're doing, that's probably how the business is being run, right? So how is that dynamic changing with the fact that it's all now digital, and the collection of knowledge base for you? What's happening there, and are you starting to see a pivot in the education process for that?
Yeah, well, given the fact that my closest client is 3,000 miles away from me, I've had to deal with this challenge for the last year and a half since we moved our family to Maui. And this is how we've sold all of our deals, is virtually since we've moved here. I didn't get on a plane once to go close any deals that we did. And I think what it's done, in my opinion, there's some old school sales reps out there that feel like they're what I would consider the relationship builder reps, where they're dropping donuts off at the office. They're trying to take you golfing. They're trying to take you out to lunch. And that, of course, resulted in all these policies within procurement organizations. Like, nope, that's like, can't do that. Can't go out with the sales reps. And that now obviously is impossible. So we need to add value with our clients. And whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it via Zoom, there's not a huge difference there. But we have to get to a place where there's a reason why we're getting on the phone, other than to drop somebody off some donuts, which just doesn't work now.
Right.
So in my opinion, it's forced sales reps to be better sales reps, because they have to add value in a way that is consistent with what the client needs. And yeah, there's some things that we train our clients on how to do that virtually. But at the end of the day, that's the main goal, is to actually get to a place where we're bringing something to the table for our clients that they couldn't otherwise get. And the bonding and rapport process, and the way that you're managing the process from step to step, has to become tighter. The way that we're setting up the Zoom meetings needs to be tighter. Nothing worse than thinking that you're going to go have a one-on-one conversation with my friend Mike, and you've got 20 people ready for a presentation, and you didn't know that. You log into the Zoom, and all of a sudden there's 20 people waiting for the so
That's not true, man. Listen, I told you that we were going to have some people in this.
I know.
What I didn't tell you is that there's 50 people on LinkedIn Live watching you do this, and more on Twitter and more on Facebook.
Well, we were hoping for that.
Yeah.
Right. But imagine you're the sales rep and you're getting on the phone thinking you're going to talk to one person on Zoom, and there's 20 guys and 20 windows looking for the big show and tell, and we didn't know that up front.
Yeah. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, I can't even offer you guys donuts while I actually have somebody whip something up for me, because there's no virtual donut opportunity, right? Yeah. So one of the questions is, do people still actually take people out prospecting for lunch? I thought that died in 2008. Yeah, they still do. There's a lot of that still happening, right? But I think, right, Pete, from what you're saying, is the real valuable lunches are the ones where you're getting an introduction from somebody you're already conducting business with, and they're bringing you into another potential lead because you knocked it out of the park, or you're having lunch with another sales rep who doesn't compete with you on, an executive decision maker that you can get an introduction to, which adds to that staggering close rate, which you told me about, which I'm still reeling on. Bonding and rapport process, you just said. I'm pulling all these little things down out of our conversation, man. So there's actually a process associated with how to bond and build rapport for sales reps. Is that a class you teach?
Yeah, believe it or not. Most sales reps don't need it though, because they're naturally good at dealing with people, or they wouldn't be in the profession to begin with. But we want to get to a place where we're finding commonality between us and the person that we're dealing with. We're understanding how they want to be communicated to and make decisions, and because we want to create trust in both directions, because we both know if there's no trust, you're not going to get to the truth. And it's going to be really hard for us to create a equal business stature partner relationship with somebody if there's no trust there. So and most of us can figure out a way to do that somewhat naturally, just frankly by being honest with people and learning what people want. But there are some things that we could do there to get better at it for sure. Like listen, for example. That's pretty high on the list with our buying and rapport classes, how to actively listen.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask that. What is the number one course that you teach sales folks from a soft skill perspective? Where's the number one gap? Is it active listening? Is it, lead gen? Is it building rapport? And what is the number one course that you see time and time again that people book, buy, tragically fail at, all that?
I guess it's good for me, Mike, but there's probably a lot more than one. As you can imagine, you've dealt with a lot of sales reps. They need some help, right?
Yeah.
But I'll give you a top 4 list or real quick.
Awesome.
One is how to get and execute that initial conversation with somebody. That one keeps coming up time and time again. And in your world, it might be the sales rep calling procurement, or it could be the sales rep calling the end user buyer, the technical buyer. But how do we execute that initial conversation, whether it's they're coming to us or we're proactively reaching out to them? That's very high on the list.
Yeah.
And the other one is how to set expectations with clients and keep the process moving from step to step. A lot of times we'll have good meetings, but then we get off the phone and one person says to the other, yeah, this looks great. Why don't you give me a call in a couple of weeks? And then all of a sudden we're in chase mode. We can't get in contact with each other because we didn't do a good job of describing how we move forward in the process together. That's very high on the list. And the biggest one I would say is asking questions and that discovery phase of the sales process of learning what the client actually needs before we start presenting. And then of course you get later in the sales process and there's a lot about how to manage accounts, how to negotiate and how to do that, but it's how to execute that initial conversation, how to manage the sales process from step to step, and then how to discover.
So there's active curriculum at every stage of the game is what you're telling me.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, nice.
There is.
I'm going to do a couple quick questions, 30-second answers, because I think we got something else we want to talk about here, and we only got 5 minutes left. What should be done to qualified leads before it gets to you? So from an active sales perspective, what do you try and do to qualified leads? How do you do that?
Well, that depends on what we're selling, and it depends on that process. But
is it, hey, do you have a budget for this? Hey, are you the accepted approver for this? Hey, is this we're going out to RFI versus RP? Like, what's the timetable on the buy? Like all of those things, right?
I'll tell you how I sum it up. It's first thing we need to do is understand what that client needs and why they need it. Because if you don't know that, then who cares about their budget process? Who cares about their decision-making process? It's all irrelevant. So, and that's why I think the term BANT or medic, they're crap terms, because none of that stuff matters. None of those acronyms matter from a qualification perspective unless we know what the client needs and why they actually need it. And if we get that, then we can start doing the acronyms. But in the beginning, it's all about the client's goals and process.
Nice. We should do another session on acronyms. Thoughts on in-person events going forward? Conference industry as a whole, things like that. What are your thoughts?
We're already having clients cancel their sales kickoff events in January, February of next year.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a lot of virtual events. I think you were a little clairvoyant in setting up Procurement Foundry the way that you did, but I think platforms like that are going to become more and more of a necessity to do business, because we're not going to be going to conferences as much, at least for the short term.
So you think long-term, the engagement of, having some way of performing B2B collaboration inside of a micro network is probably the future. Not that that's a pitch for Procurement Foundry, but it's a pitch for Procurement Foundry, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you make how do you make online events more experiential from a sales perspective? Are we just in the beginning of people doing webinars and Zooms, and it's going to get a lot better? Is there starting to be coursework around that? Like, how are you going to engage these people more?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I've got a friend who lives down the road in Maui here. He helps with that. He does emceeing events. He leverages music to make music become part of that online experience. And there's things that we can do inside of Zoom that help a lot. The breakout function is huge for us, and when we do trainings.
Polling,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep, all that is key, and it keeps getting better and better just by the month. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that we're still in our infancy in this thing. I don't think it's going away. I think this is the new norm, and I think that like you're so used to walking into an office and having a conversation, bringing in three people. One person's the lead, one person's the scribe, and one person's just the observer, right? So you hit in with a hit squad. You're going to need that somewhere inside of this virtual space to be effective, either on the sales or on the negotiation side going forward, on the buy side or on the sell side, whatever side you're on. And I don't think that's been figured out yet, but I think that it'll be there. And again, I think there'll be a lot of people and maybe even some technology that comes out and shows you the fact that, hey, Mike had you crossed his arms 6 times during that video conference call. When you started talking about this, he did that. And, there's all sorts of that, going on, inflections in his voice, things like that. So I think that this actually leads to it, because if you could record every sales call, it probably would have been better over the years. But now you've got an option to, potentially have that, right? So listen, we're almost out of time. First things first, I want to thank you. Amazing conversation. Thanks, Pete, for coming on at such an early time in the morning.
I started 3 or 4 every day, Mike.
I mean, that's amazing that you start at 3 or 4 in the morning. I would be like, no, I'm going to the surf. I'll see you later. So one thing we want to talk about before we leave is the fact that we're working on a project together, right? You and I. So you want to talk to the folks a little bit about what we're going to be doing together. We've got something really interesting. Pete, and rekindling this relationship with Pete and talking about training and education on the sales side has made me really, really think a lot about value proposition inside of Procurement Foundry. So Pete, why don't you tell them what we've developed together?
Yeah, and I do actually believe that the best relationship between procurement and sales is if we're both sitting on the same side of the table. So we wanted to reverse engineer the sales process and give procurement a look into what a successful sales rep does and how they should engage with you. And we're going to basically go through that process. And we're also going to give you some leadership principles that we know will apply to procurement professionals as well, and put together a 90-minute hard-hitting training class that's live, instructor-led by me. And we'll give you some additional stuff along with that. But the main goal here is to give you a look inside the sales process so that we can basically execute better together, if you will. And then also provide you with some leadership strategies that we think will be huge in helping you progress in your procurement career as well.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this. It's been a long time coming. There's a lot of collaboration that takes place inside of the Procurement Foundry. I think the collaboration gives a lot of value, obviously, to people from the feedback from my community members. But I also have been asked by a lot of my community members, hey, what's next in the educational process, right? So literally what Pete's talking about and what we've been working on together is kicking off the digital training solution for Procurement Foundry members. So we're really, really excited about this. We're dipping our toe in with something that I think everybody needs to know about. This is our first foray into digital training, paid digital training. I brought you one of the best guys I know in the business for this thing. And probably one of the most important topics, which is knowing who you're working with across the table. Pete's giving you kind of a taste of what that is today. We've got a course scheduled for July 1st. We're releasing it right now. We're going to drop it on the notifications inside of this. So after this stream, I'm going to go back in. The registration's open for the class right now. It's $89 for a class if you're a Procurement Foundry member. It's 139 if you're not a Procurement Foundry member. Seating is limited. There will be there's a code inside of Procurement Foundry for all the Procurement Foundry members. Tina's going to put the code out inside of the announcement board. The name of the class is Deconstructing the Sales Mind: What All Sourcing Pros Need to Know. And again, it's going to be Pete teaching a 90-minute live instructor-led course. We're super excited about that. July 1st from 1 until 2 o'clock. And we think that this is the beginning of a lot more education to come inside of the Procurement Foundry. I'm working on a whole bunch of other stuff. Pete and I are talking about more coursework together on soft skills and sales skills, and potentially bridging the gap between sales and sourcing. Because a lot of the skill sets that we have actually transfer into the sales mindset, right, Pete? So really excited about that. I'm going to pump that out right now. We'll be promoting that over the next couple of weeks. If you want to get inside Pete's head, and if you want to know more about all the stuff that he started talking about today, that 90-minute class for less than $100 is the way to do it, right? So really excited, Pete. Thanks so much for tuning in from Maui today. I'm sure we're going to do another one of these events because of the numbers that we've had here today and the engagement that we've had. And I look forward to partnering up with you on the digital training side of it as well. So thanks, man. Really excited. And I'm glad that we personally, you and I have gotten back to building our friendship again. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the Zoom members. Thanks for the LinkedIn Live folks, all 30 or 40 of you. Really appreciate it. And you guys go have a great Monday and go kill it this week. All right. All right, buddy. Take care. Good to see you.
See you, Mike.
Bye-bye.